Hello, welcome to the Diablo podcast. We are online at diabloincgamers.com. I am your host, Flux. This is the second half of podcast number 110. That show featured Xanth and Azure and myself talking about Loot 1.5, and we posted that a week and a half ago, and we're going to post the second half shortly afterwards, but then we got all the data mining information, and then the auction house shut down. Those breaking news points necessitated emergency podcasts on those topics, and this one got delayed a bit. Luckily, this one is all Xanth and myself talking about game stuff, so none of it is out of date at this point, although we do have a couple of mentions of things. We know a little more about Paragon points and the Sharagon system than we did at that time, but very minor little things. We talk about hardcore gameplay and how hardcore is going to work with Paragon system, and brainstorm some new Witch Doctor skills and abilities that we'd like to see added to the game, and a few other things. No hard breaking news, but lots of gameplay stuff, and we're both elitist scum talking about public games, so that's good for a laugh and possible hatred. So enjoy the show. So Xanth, since you've last been on the podcast, I believe you had some good news with your main character in hardcore.
Yeah, we actually streamed it. Um, and I was able to get to Paragon 100 with my Witch Doctor in hardcore.
And that was when I was carrying you every step of the way, right?
And
The last point one levels.
entirely. We ran a couple times. We gave away 100 million gold.
What's this we? You gave away 100 million gold.
Well, I mean, you were,
I just stood there.
you were there. Uh,
Exactly.
and yeah, it was.
And so since you've hit 100, you've had no idea what to do with yourself.
I've been kind of wandering. That in tandem with, going back to work and a 2-year-old who has decided he hates sleeping, have kind of kept me away from really pushing anything.
But he loves the Packers.
Exactly. Who would?
That's all that really matters.
Who wouldn't? America's heartland, right here.
So yeah, you were asking me what do you do with your witch doctor now, and I was making jokes about you should strip him like a Lexus left in the bad part of town and sell him for parts. And that's actually not out of the question. I mean, we know that gear is going to be totally replaced. Like you were saying, you don't want to die because we don't know how if the whole Paragon 2.0 thing coming up.
Right.
Because it would be really, really bad to die with a really high level Paragon character in hardcore and waste all those experience points now, wouldn't it? Hypothetically speaking, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be bad. I don't.
So are you afraid to play your witch doctor now?
Um, in some ways, yeah. I think, we were talking about it the other night. Um, until we really know what's going to happen with a dead hardcore character, it kind of feels safer to just keep them parked. Um, and you joke about selling things off, but is there each day that I don't right now, it's going to lose value because the closer we get, the items are going to drop and it's going to be worth nothing. And I could at least go into the next and go into the expansion with a heavier bankroll. But
Yeah, that's the other question because the expansion is going to totally, as we've talked about on previous podcasts. But I mean, we're assuming that like a weekend of the expansion, all current year will be crap. So
and
you don't want to save your, $100 million worth of, every slot's going to be worth 1 million a slot. So
yeah, so it wouldn't make any sense. Um, and I think one of the things that's intrigued me about the expansion has been the Crusader. So if I sold it all off by the time I got that Crusader up to 70, I would have a nice bankroll to just spend on stuff, which would be plentiful because of all the legendaries that are now dropping, right? And I'd be able to gear up for cheap as opposed to sitting there with my Witch Doctor's gear, um, and that is going to get replaced right away, and that I can't even sell back for anything.
on the other hand, it's early September 2013 right now,
Right.
and we probably, I mean, the absolute earliest possible release of Diablo 3 expansion would probably be 6 months after the beta starts. It hasn't started yet.
Right.
It's. I mean, the earliest some people are guessing in our whole predictive release date thing. May, April, June. I mean, I think very very few people think anything before May or June. Many of us think December 2014 or even later.
Hmm.
And your favorite character is the Witch Doctor, and you like playing that build, and you've got all this gear built up.
Right.
Are you really not going to play your favorite character for 8 or 10 or 12 or 16 months
It's
because maybe you don't want to die? Why don't you give all your gear to a new Witch Doctor, and then you can start burning up more experience levels? And
Yeah, I guess like I have a hard time playing another character when I have a living one, just because you've gone.
that's why you're not a polygamist.
Yeah, I know, I know. But you've gone
as
through
far as
so
we know.
much with them, and it was a nice journey, and they're powerful. I know some people who only play one class and they just keep releveling it. The whole time with my witch doctor, the goal was to get one to 100, and it was never to get two to 100 or whatever it is. Um, I just kind of want to play other classes, but been too frequently distracted as of late.
Yeah, but as we said, you get at least 6 months, probably 8 or 10 or 12 or 14. So
Right. I think
you may change your goals in that point.
right. Right now I'm working on just slowly leveling up a monk. Since I
Very, aren't you like 26?
Yeah, yeah,
That's slowly.
yeah, real slow, no rushing or anything like that, just because it I don't need to. I think that's the one thing that was really nice about hitting Paragon 100 is that was my biggest goal for so long. And once I got there, it was just kind of nice to be like, all right, I can just kind of ease up a little bit, because it seems so tough to get to, especially in hardcore. And I know there are some people who run it and can do it in like 200 or like 100 hours or something like that. But like on my terms and like just doing it at my pace to get there, and that felt good. And now I can just kind of lean back and just kind of play really semi-casually, I guess.
Speaking of recent play stuff, I guess I have to mention that the character that I carried you so manfully
Oh
with,
yeah, I should ask, yeah, how you're.
my monk who was level 90, was after I got you to 100 and you abandoned me and left me alone and helpless. No, I'm kidding, but I got on one morning. I was almost to 91, and it was very late after working all night, and I was going to do one quick key run on MP4, and I loaded up and went to the Festering Woods waypoint where we so often begin our experiences. And that was the last thing I did because suddenly my frame rate went to about zero point zero 0.01, and literally like one frame per 5 seconds, and nothing was happening, and it was just sitting there, and I couldn't move, and I was stabbing buttons, and like 20 seconds went by, and I still couldn't move, and I was like sort of seeing, like the screen is sort of suffused with colors when it's like loading one screen at a time for 20 things that are happening. And I couldn't even alt tab out. All I hear is my hard drive thrashing, and I died. So to a ghoul, and not even a boss, a regular ghoul was the kill message.
You
So
probably had friends with them though, helping.
yeah, that's the thing. I posted it. We had this hardcore graveyard forum, this deeds thread, as they say. Your deeds will be remembered. And I posted the last screenshot I took of it, and I have a 16 kill streak somehow, and I'm just sitting there with a bunch of ghouls you can kind of see, and like some of those wraithy dudes that fly out of the woods in there. So I don't even know what was happening. Apparently, some of my commands were getting through, but not many of them,
Right.
and it was a really stupid death.
You were playing solo though, right?
Oh, of course, because people are dirty.
Right. So when you were hitting commands, why not hit escape for the pause?
I was trying to hit everything, and nothing was happening.
Okay.
It just wasn't. No commands were going through. I was trying to alt tab out even,
Right.
and it just was completely locked up. And the music, I had music playing on Winamp, and that locked up. What I had been doing that day is I have an SSD or an STD or whatever the hell they're called. The smaller, faster ones is my C drive,
Right.
and it was almost full. And so I had uninstalled a number of programs and moved them to my D drive, which is just an old-fashioned hard drive that's got a terabyte or whatever, so much more space. And I had not done like a restart since doing that. And I think that was my fatal failure is that suddenly all of this computer stuff, I had cleared out like 10 gig of space on my SDD, and it had not been rebooted since then or restarted, which was pretty stupid. And I think that just it all caught up at once when I started playing Diablo 3, and it just completely locked me up and ruined me.
Oof. Like I've been meaning to just do like a write up on the whole trip from 1 to 100, but those kind of things like I only had like a few disconnects along the way. But like every time you log back in and you just expect to be dead.
Yeah.
And it's never a good feeling, but overall, I mean, I think, and you always see these threads pop up about people complaining about disconnects. I think from the whole time I went from 1 to 100, I had two disconnects, and then like some lag here and there, but overall, never anything major.
And that's why you're still alive.
Well, yeah, or I'd be playing in a public game, and I would have other people there who, if I did slow down, and if you're with a good group of people, they run back to you and just check.
Yeah, I mentioned that to Zappafan, who was our hardcore forum moderator and also is a very heavy player. And he mostly plays barbarians, but he still has pretty good advice, even despite that obvious shortcoming. And he said that it's a really good idea to start off in Leoric's Manor instead of the Festering. Because that way, if you get a total lockup or right when it's loading time issues, there's nothing that's going to kill you standing on that waypoint.
Okay.
Whereas on the Festering, you can often get lots of bad things on the waypoint. So since then, I'm into my new monk, who's now I think 36 or 37 Paragon, and I've been doing it in Leorix, and of course I haven't had any problems with, with loading times anyway. But it does seem like why not, right?
Right. Yeah.
It can't hurt. You usually do Leorix second after Festering before you get to get your 5 stacks. So
Yeah, and normally Leorix is a stop in case you don't get your 5 stacks in festering anyway. So
yeah, you're gonna do that first or second or first, and that one you're completely safe at the waypoint. So the one sad thing about that waypoint is there's always a dead NPC lying right there on the ground, clickable, and I always think, God, he was so close to the waypoint when they got him. If only, maybe he locked up too. Maybe his system crashed and he couldn't get out of it.
he's just there to remind you.
Yeah. So two other news points. We got some interesting details about the Mystics functions. Wyatt Chang made a post about correcting and elaborating upon what Lyleria, our community manager, said. And lots of, basically what we knew already, you can replace one of the affixes on an item. You'll be able to in the future anyway. And you'll roll a number of them, like 3 or 4 or 5. It'll say, here's your choice, pick one of these, kind of thing. And that's going to really make, and of course, once you do that, the item becomes bound on account. And what did you think about that system, Xanth? Are you excited? Do you have items that have everything perfect except for one roll, and you'll be immediately wanting to upgrade them?
Well, I won't need to because the second we really start playing and get to use the Mystic, all those items will be relatively useless again. Um, I mean, I like it. I like the concept of being able to kind of go in and think of how many things that you've picked up that were just so close. And it then being account bound can start to maybe pull things a little bit out of the economy. But I don't know. I guess I don't know. When it comes to the Mystic, I guess I was just kind of indifferent. Um, all we're kind of going back to the loot stuff. We're just going to be trying to gear again back to those three core things: critical hit damage, critical chance, and attack speed.
Well, we're hoping that with Loot 2.0 that will not be the case, but obviously it has to be seen to be believed, right?
Right, and hopefully they have some tricks up their sleeve and something else changes because there's obviously more about the expansion that they're saving for BlizzCon. Um,
Yeah.
and but I mean, I'm glad she's coming back at least, right?
Yeah, I thought that it seemed like a pretty useful feature. I mean, I posted a whole article a couple days ago about what she used to be, before they removed her in the first place. And it was about adding modifiers. And it was kind of like, you could add attack speed or you could add main stat or you could add all kinds of other stuff. It was like a crafting thing, like basically like the blacksmith, but you were adding it to your current items. But it wasn't about replacing anything or changing anything. So it's interesting how they've modified their system. And you wonder what they're responding to say changing one instead of just adding something. Maybe adding it would be too powerful, or I
Yeah.
mean, the thing I'm really curious about is how it's gonna change item value because currently if you don't get like a socket and a helm or critical chance on a bracers or a shield or something, they're useless. And if they get that, they can be really good with other stats. But once you get that, you just need to get everything except for one stat that's perfect. So you might find the best pair of bracers in the game, with Resol and regen and armor and two really big stats, but with no CC. And whereas currently that item is useless, it could become like the most valuable thing in the auction house once you have this system waiting in advance for you.
Right. I think what else it will do is, pull more people away from the auction house too, because you'll probably be able to find those items, hopefully.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think at this point of playing, I've found just about every legendary I could find. Um, or well, yeah, of course I found every legendary I could find. Just about every legendary available in the game. But out of those, how many were actually viable for anything? Um, Not much.
If anything includes the auction house, then yes. If anything includes fiery brimstones, then they're all valuable.
Well,
But
yeah,
I do wonder about the if you'd be able to re-roll the main. Obviously, as you said earlier, the most important stat is damage on your weapon.
right.
And if you can re-roll the damage on your weapon, won't everyone just always re-roll weapon damage I guess you would want to, it's probably easier to find. It's weird because I don't even, because when I find a rare weapon, all I look at is the DPS. And if it's not at least, pretty good, 900 or something, you don't even look at the other stats. I mean, who cares,
Yeah,
right?
it's not even worth it. I mean, since most weapons have a plus damage modifier, either it's plus elemental or you have the black damage, um, I can I could see where it could be a possibility to re-roll it, but I could also, it does seem like it would be the one thing that you would just go for right away.
Would you know if you say, have you ever found like a one-handed weapon that had, 400 DPS, but it had, socket, lifesteal, huge stat rolls, AS? Would you even know that? And critical hit, of course, obviously. I would never even notice that. So it's funny that you have to like retrain my brain what to look for in the expansion.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through and I've identified items, and I still like will just kind of breeze through before they're quickly sold. But every now and then, like you just see a whole bunch of stats on something, and then you like look up and recheck the damage. Like, oh, was that good? Oh no, nope, it still sucks. And then it's quickly gone. But on occasion, but for the most part, yeah, I wouldn't be checking it too often.
I wouldn't notice. I've trained my eyes. I actually like picking up weapons more than armor because when I go back to town to sort them, I tend to salvage stuff so I can just, reuse them, make the crafting recipes and not have to buy materials. But when I like getting weapons more than armor because weapons you just glance at one thing and if that's not at least a pretty big number, you don't even look at the rest of it. At least I don't even look at the rest of it. Obviously, you is not the operative term. Whereas with armor, I have to actually look because maybe you don't care what the armor is so much. If it's got sockets and resol and stats, then maybe it's going to be valuable to sell. So
So,
I'm gonna have to retrain my brain on this part.
well, I mean, we'll see how it all works. I mean, if you can't change the damage, then who knows?
Okay, two other topics. Pubbies. You've long been an advocate of public games. You've written numerous columns about it, how to watch out for PKs and stuff.
Right.
But also, I've been doing some more pubbies lately, which I hadn't done much of in the past. On my new characters, I consciously did not spend a great deal to outfit my new monk. I had a bunch of leftover stuff. My old monk had gotten to about 80, and once I had max magic find, I started switching off some gear and basically upgrading some stuff to other items without magic find and with bigger stats, which was expensive, and they all went away when I died. Quite tragic. But anyway, that left me with a fair amount of stuff and other crafted things I had sitting around. So I didn't spend a great deal to outfit my new monk, and he's nowhere near the DPS of my old one, though he's not bad. But I've been doing some public games because I can't dominate MP4 solo farming runs anymore. And they really make me unhappy. And the most obvious thing that needs to be fixed that I can't believe hasn't is a timer that would tell you how long the game has been awake for.
Yeah. Um,
Because every time I join a game, I get in there and it's like there's three people or two people, and half the time they immediately leave, and I'm like, well, I guess they've already finished this game, but there's no way to know.
yeah, and I've actually gone into games where people were leaving right away and it wasn't even clear. But like just because somebody had left, like maybe there was something random going on in their lives, they leave the game. You see one person leave as you're entering a game, you assume it's clear, you leave. Um, it's just kind of like habit, but it is. I think I was talking about that a while ago. Especially, I think it's more of a problem in hardcore where you have a smaller player base, and if you're playing on like an MP3 or an MP4 where less people are, then you get shoved into, there's maybe a handful of games that you'll end up in. Um, and yeah, I completely agree. There should be some sort of system in place to kind of say either this game has been open for this amount of time or this many monsters have been killed or something like that, that would at least let you know or get an idea of, how far in they are into a run or whatever. But maybe that changes in the expansion with these Nephilim trials and stuff like that, where you're just joining the trials as opposed to doing these longer, elaborate runs.
They're not that much longer
Right.
or that much more elaborate.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if I cared enough, I would make some sort of ironic, sarcastic analogy to maybe we could just have games that had names and times when they were created, but I don't even care enough to do that. So just that you can't see a list of games and how long they've been open for is stupid and annoying, and I want that back from Diablo 2, obviously. But it's just annoying that when you get into them, there's no slider to say I don't want to join any games that are more than 5 minutes old or something like that.
Yeah.
It just seems like the most common sense, obvious thing you would ever want in this system, and it's not there.
Yeah, and I know what a lot of people have a tendency to say when when this gets brought up is if you don't want this to happen, create your own game and open it to the public. But I've done that so many times, and you can almost go through a full run before anybody even joins you, thus defeating the purpose of being in a public game because you want the extra experience, you want the extra magic find. Um, so it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Either you open a game and you get nobody to join, or you join a game and then you have to leave because everybody, left except for the one person who hangs out in town, and then you keep rejoining that game for another 20 minutes.
Exactly. Okay, here's the elitist scumbag part. People are hella noobs in public games. I was amazed. I was in a couple of games in a row with this guy playing a witch doctor, and he was like Paragon 2.0 to start with, and he's probably dead by now. In fact, I would actually bet he's dead by now, given the way he was playing. But he was trying to use the bat column, whatever the fiery bat one that just goes around you is. And
Yeah,
so you're
out of
basically,
bats.
yeah, cloud of bats. So you're putting yourself in harm's way, but it does a lot of damage and stuff gets there. And I don't know how many hit points he had or something, but like every third boss pack, he would run out in front and do that and then immediately go running away and go, and he would actually typing. No one types in public games, so this is obviously a rare occasion. Oh my god, that was so close! I almost died. And then he'd go stand in town for 2 minutes. And at first I was figuring he was just sort of like silently sobbing there, like my first wife. But I finally figured he's probably just procking Spirit Vessel every single time, and he has to go wait 90 seconds for the cooldown, right?
Yep.
So maybe that's not the best play strategy when you're almost dying on every single pack you get to, and you've got 27k DPS or something like that. And I was talking to another podcast guest, Nineball, about his new hardcore monk, and he's fairly new to hardcore, so he's kind of bootstrapping his way up. And he asked me what MP do you play on, and I was saying my last monk I would do solo MP4 pretty happily, farming it, and now I'm mostly doing MP2 because I have a Hellfire ring that's not super high damage. And he's all, yeah, I'm doing MP1 and it's really tough solo. I'm like, what's your DPS? He goes, oh, like 38k. And I was like, did you miss a number there? Because I have like 92k, and I think that's low. So
Right.
I'm imagining what people in public games are like, as you've written columns about this, people have like 9k DPS, and they're trying off a hard. They can be useful tanks, or they can share you auras and stuff. But
Right. I think, with that class homogenization and the itemization, we've kind of gotten rid of support classes. So like there's no point in being a tank. There's no point in, having buffs really as much. Because all we would rather have is the person in the group with 100,000 DPS who can clear quickly. Uh,
Crusader will change all
right,
this
right.
with his fiery shields.
I think it'll be. I'm excited for the Crusader, but um, more to the point, yeah, you get a lot of people in who don't have any concept of what they should be doing in any particular MP. Um, I remember like when I was first really getting into Inferno, um, I knew it was going to be tough, and that was before the MP system. And when my monk was, playing around in like MP1, I was doing like no, it was MP0 because that was I knew if I put it on MP1, that was back when Act Threes was the best farming spot. I would die. I was doing like 30k in MP0 in Act Three, and I knew it was really low, but that was like the bare minimum I could handle. And then I found that a witching hour, and that changed my whole hardcore life. But um, after that, like just slowly testing the waters instead of just opening a public game and jumping in and letting other people do the work for me.
Yeah, I wasn't really checking. I wasn't doing an inspect on every person I played with, but I would notice that I don't think my monk is like really well geared. But I guess comparatively speaking, he is because I have a lot of hand me downs and stuff. But and I'm like, why am I doing like 85% of the damage that's being done to monsters in this entire game? These people are dumping in, they're trying really hard and stuff, but you
Right.
just realize how much of a gear check there really is. And obviously, I've been doing hardcore for a while and built up some stuff. So
Well, I think, the one nice thing about the T3 itemization system is because you kind of hit that choke point at 60 where everybody looks exactly the same. You can look at a character in a game and you can kind of get an idea of what their DPS is based on their gear if you know it well enough. You see a monk with a mempo, and like you can look at the weapon might be a little tricky, but you can look at the armor, you can see if it's innas and stuff like that. That'll help you kind of gauge what kind of player they are. And when you go in and you see them, carrying a weapon you've never seen before, especially with witch doctors, because we're very specific in terms of what gear we need to really push DPS. You know, if you see somebody who's not using a Manajuma's knife or a Thing of the Deep, um, you kind of begin to question. Like,
Yeah, if he's not if he doesn't have a frog's balls in his hand, he's not doing going anywhere.
he just doesn't know how to play the class because you got to cut the balls.
The one funny guy I liked, there was some dude playing a barbarian doing like the total cookie cutter cheesecake, rush through WWWW thing and leaving like a trail of whatever behind him. And I'm going behind him with my monk, and he's not killing a single thing. Everything like I get to every zombie, and it's got like 85% of its hit points left,
Yeah,
and he's like 3.5 screens ahead of me. I don't think he killed a single monster in the entire level.
yeah,
I'm like, what do you think you're accomplishing here? Like he was just sort of pissing him off, And I guess it wasn't bad. I'd come up with my monk, and they'd have 75% of their hit points, and I'd finish them off in one or two hits and sweeping winding along.
right.
But I don't know if he thought he was killing things and was just caught up in the moment, or
Like, I know there are some barbarians that won't kill them all, but they like go through and they kind of try and farm them all into a pack, and then you can just crush them. Um, but I've seen far too many that just zip by, and like their whole goal is, I think, like they're timing themselves to see how fast they can make a circle around, the festering woods or something. Um, so I mainly spent a lot of time kind of doing public games with friends, like opening up one or two spots so I know that most people aren't just going to slow me down.
yeah, I mean, as I joked to you about the witch doctor I mentioned earlier, it's a good thing that the shared experience in gold find and magic find doesn't stop working when the guy's hiding in town quivering like a broken spring,
Right. I've also
because at least he's still fulfilling some purpose.
have you noticed in public games that people sell items far too often? Like I'll be like I pick up items and I sell them at the end of the run. Like that's kind of my deal. Like I don't want to stop the run to go in and look at things. I want to go and just kill. And maybe I'm very methodical in that. And I think I'd be playing with these people and we'd just do the festering woods and then we'd be on our way to, the cemetery. And like halfway through the cemetery, people are like, I've got to go sell. And then like somebody else is like, yeah, I'm gonna go sell too. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I'm gonna just keep killing things, and then it would be like two or three more times where people would be selling, and it slows you down.
Maybe they're just poor. They're picking up every single thing they find.
That's what I'm wondering. Well, I'm like, I've got two things in my inventory right now, and you've filled yours. That just seems weird.
Well, happily, we're both elitist scum, so we've alienated all of our listeners at this point.
It's true. It's true.
So last topic, even though we're going a little longer than we're planning in here, but as Blizzard has said, they're going to be adding new skills from 60 to 70,
Right.
and maybe we'll do a whole podcast on this at some point and really get into what each class needs and stuff. But so if you're imagining you're adding, I don't know what, two, three new skills plus all the rune effects, maybe they've said they're going to redo all the current rune effects as well. I mean, not all of them, obviously, but I mean they're going to upgrade them and fix them and improve them and stuff. But so looking at like maybe just the two classes you know best, which are the Witch Doctor and the Witch Doctor, what what is the big missing thing? I mean, people often say witch doctors don't have any real fast movement speed. Is kind of one thing they would like. Maybe that doesn't even fit with the class. So,
Yeah.
so if you're designing the witch doctor with your magic, godly powers, what do you want to change in terms of like, not just 8% more damage to frogs or something like that? What do you do?
I guess like one thing, I mean, it's not necessarily a new skill or anything like that that I think of that seems to be missing from the class is, temporary pet skills, right? But we also were really pushed as like, rising the dead a little bit. Like, think of all the zombie skills that a witch doctor has that have no use. Like, zombie wall would be great. It looked really cool in 2008 when we saw it, but you never use it. Or like we have zombie bears and zombie charger or whatever, but it's really just kind of been reduced. I'd like to see more of that element kind of come in, not necessarily taking the place of the necromancer in terms of raising the dead, but a little more on that aspect. And yeah, you can call them zombie dogs all you want, but they're mongrels in my opinion. Um, I think the other thing in terms of the witch doctor class that's always kind of bothered me is it really seems to lack like a good single target skill. Like I can
Why would you want a single target skill?
well everybody else has one, right? Um,
But they never use them because the entire game's about AoE.
right. I guess maybe, in my opinion, like shifting away from just herds of monsters right in front of you, but having a need for a single target skill. I don't know. I would like that. I would welcome a single target in some respect. Um, but that might just be me.
It's just you, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I asked that question to Wyatt and Josh when I did the interview and said, is there any way to make single target skills valuable in a game where you've always got 50 enemies on the screen? And they said, well, no, but we need to make the game a little different in some ways so you don't always have 50 enemies,
Right.
other than Ubers. So
Right.
I think maybe we'll see something like that with loot runs, where you'll get some area where there's like one single really big enemy, and if you had a really big damage single target skill, that'd be really handy that one time.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine there's got to be something in the expansion that's going to do something like that. Um, I
Of course, PvP would be a nice use for that, so maybe someday we'll get PvP, but
Who knows on that? Um,
if you had a 500% weapon damage single target skill, that would be awesome in PvP. You'd never use it again, except maybe for an Uber, but
right.
someday.
Yeah.
It's fun to pretend.
I think also looking at the witch doctor. I mean, in terms of like the pet class, you have two of them. I would like to see a third that can do, I don't know, something different, something better. Because like the zombie dogs, I I don't use them for attack. Like I have them on there so they like absorb 10% of my damage. That's the only reason I use them. Like I think I stopped using them as damage, um, probably before I had hit 60.
Nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I'd like to see a little more emphasis on the pet part of the class since it is the only class that really has it. Again, not saying it has to be the complete, redesign of the Necromancer, but if that's part of its selling point, why aren't they actually beneficial in terms of doing damage?
Yeah, I don't want to. I posted these. We have 5 forum threads going on our individual class forums about. That didn't make sense. We have 5 threads going on in our individual class forums about the 60 to 61 to 70 skills, and I'll put links to those in the write up for this podcast. But my witch doctor thing is you kind of mentioned the whole thing with we can't have corpses exactly, and I don't want the necromancer to come back, but I think it'd be fun to have some kind of a zoomancer build where you've actually there's these short term skills that give you fetishes and stuff,
Yeah,
but like no one really uses them. But I mean like something like God, which one? I forget the passive that makes a zombie dog come out of the ground if you kill something within 10 yards of you. But I
uh,
mean something like that with like flares.
okay.
Where you could actually do it and it would stack, and you could, if you did it right and built for it, maybe you could, there's certain gear that would give you better odds of it or something like that.
That actually, that kind of build came to mind when they were redoing the legendaries the first time, and they showed the Gidbin where it would randomly
Yeah.
summon a fetish. I'm like, oh, that's gonna be so awesome! You can have all these fetishes, and then obviously that didn't materialize.
Yes. Or crawl out of the ground. But I think it could be fun that, that's something you don't really get in Diablo 3. And obviously, we're not getting a Necromancer in the expansion. We're getting a Paladin.
Right.
So we're not going to get it anytime soon. But, to the minion management, I mean, that's not really my personal favorite build for the Necromancer, but a lot of people did like it.
Yeah. I,
And it certainly seems like something that we're not getting now, where I mean, for any class, there's never really minion management at all. They're just sort of these temporary things that just run out in front of you.
right. And if the witch doctor is being sold as the one thing that has pets and can use them, I mean, realistically, the only build the witch doctor has now that relies on the pets for damage involves exploding them. Um, maybe if that was something that could get expanded outward in terms of blowing up all your pets or possessing other things that you could then blow up, I'd be okay with that. But
What if you could summon your own fallen imps? I mean, what are the blow up ones? Fanatics.
hmm, I like
You
that.
could summon stuff that blew up after 10 seconds or something like that. That could be kind of fun. It's almost like a zombie charger that's a minion.
Yeah, and it would fit the class in some way.
Yeah. So anyway, at some point we'll do a whole podcast about brainstorming on all these different skills, and we have current threads for all 5 classes, and there's quite a few comments. People have made some interesting points about what they need and what they don't really have now, and what needs to be upgraded. And it's hard to differentiate between what you need for new stuff and what you want to change for current stuff. And of course, there's going to be new passives as well. I would assume we'll probably get 2 or 3 new passives for each class,
Speaking of which,
and what they don't have, and maybe the monk can finally get a damage passive, that kind of thing.
right, I was. on that thought process the other day, and I'm actually writing a column on it. It'll probably be out before this goes live. Um, but it ties into to one other thing. First, I put out a post last week about the lack of losing experience anymore in hardcore once Reaper of Souls hits, because it's a shared account system now. And if I were to lose my Witch Doctor, that 100 is already banked into the Sharagon system. So if that goes live, losing any character will not deduct from whatever my total experience is. The only thing you lose is gold, um, which got me thinking. In the new system, if that's the only thing you lose, do you necessarily need passives built around avoiding death when it's not as big of a loss anymore?
Gear.
But if gear is more easily approachable in terms of self-found and the auction house, and modifiable from the mystic, do you necessarily need it anymore?
Yes, I want my gear back.
Well,
As I'm playing a new monk built upon the old monk and looking at, I would love that Unity with CD back. Oh, those are 95 million still. Oh well.
right.
But yeah, that's yeah. I'll segue this into the final question I had for you. Is that maybe that's the case, but many people don't play 1,000 hours a week, and if they lose a character, it's a really big loss, and that's like every egg in every basket they had.
Right.
So
But I
and
mean,
you keep a little bit of your Paragon bonuses, but that's nothing compared to what it is. And if you have friends who can, if you have friends and Hellfire Vitality rings, and you can just zoom back to 60 in a day and a half, then no big deal.
right.
But for some people, that's a week or a month of playtime.
For some, yeah. But are the people that are making those kind of complaints necessarily the same people who are the ones that take a month to get back to the level cap?
Only Azure, no
Yeah.
one else.
I guess I think that if we're gonna go that way, if we're gonna say that you're not gonna lose experience anymore, then death needs to be something that really has to be avoided. It's still because I feel like losing or not losing the experience takes away a little bit of what hardcore is. And then I think we need to make death a little more menacing and a little less avoidable. To
Okay, speaking of what hardcore is, final question.
Yeah.
This is something Blizzard has said they're debating currently. Should dead hardcore characters' experience count toward your Sharagon when the system goes live?
I don't know. They did give us a Hall of the Heroes, right? They did give us a place to store them. Um, I guess, in my opinion, I don't care either way, but I'd like an answer. Then I'll know.
That's not an opinion.
Yeah.
You can't say I don't care either way is my opinion.
Well, here's the thing. Like,
What is your total of dead characters if you add up their Paragon levels?
if I add up their levels, I mean, it's probably there's a 72, and I don't know, maybe 90, but we know on the experience curve it's not really 90. Um,
Yeah, true.
so like if on the experience curve, if they were all added together, maybe it'd be like 74. Um, you know,
So you're arguing against your own interests if you say no, but
yeah, absolutely. Um, but at the same time, like I could see where they wouldn't. I think it would really depend on how long it's going to be between release of the expansion. If it's going to be a long time, and like really far down the line, like you're saying December of 2014, I could see where they would let it happen because the game has been out for so long that they would want to draw in more people with that promise. If the game is going to be coming out sooner, I could see where they would say no, because then I guess I don't know where I'm going with this, but I could see where they would say no.
so we people by the time the expansion comes out, it'll have been at least 2 years
Yeah,
potentially of people filling their inventories with dead hardcore characters for 2 years, filling their Hall of Heroes.
right. But
And you're
there's
probably looking at,
only a
at
couple
least 2 years
characters.
between expansions. I mean, I guess long term won't matter that much, but obviously right at the start it'll make a big difference.
Right.
And I say that as the proud owner of 151 Paragon levels of two dead monks. So which is almost exactly a Paragon 100. It's funny how that works out. Paragon 90 from Paragon 90 to Paragon 100 is almost exactly the same experience as from Paragon 1 to 60.
Yeah.
And I died at 90, and my previous monk died at 61. So I have exactly a Paragon 100 monk if you add it together, even though I had 150 Paragon levels between the two of them.
Right.
And my current monk, my new monk, is up to 35. So I'm thinking once I get to 60, I'm going to celebrate as though I'd gotten to 100 with the last one. I think that's only fair.
Yeah, I was thinking that as I got to what 90 with the witch doctor, that had I, made it with the monk, I would have already been there. But you know, it's one of those things. What do you think? Well, I mean, what's your take on this? I mean, first on the dead hardcore, characters not transferring, and then on the hardcore characters not losing experience when they die anymore.
Well, I like the Sharagon thing. I think this came up. There was a whole debate in the comments on your post. Actually, I was arguing with people about that. If you don't, I mean, for one thing, I think it's just technical reasons. I mean, they're designing this whole Sharagon system where your Paragon levels all go to your account, and you won't actually have Paragon levels on individual characters as far as we know. So I don't even know that it makes sense to say you would keep them separate in some way because the system doesn't even going to support that. So it's not, I mean, like if you have a Paragon 90 and a Paragon 10 of the same class, once you go to the new system, you've got, that much Sharagon experience and they're both level 60s.
Right.
And there's not really any difference between them anymore. I kind of don't like that on some ways. When we were first brainstorming on the whole Sharagon thing months ago when they first announced it, we were kind of thinking it seemed like that it would be better to have like a 50-50 split. Like 50% of your bonuses would come from that character's actual Paragon levels, and 50% would come from the account. Because it just seemed cheesy to get a new character to level 60, and suddenly they're exactly the same as somebody else's Paragon 100 from a month ago.
Right.
That just seems cheesy to me. It seems like you should have some sort of something that's built onto each character by that playtime, and not just be able to get your friends to turbo you to 70 or 60 or 70 depending on whichever version of the game, and they're immediately as good as someone else's Paragon 150 who's a character that's 2.5 years old and has been played forever.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's even going to be an option. I mean, they haven't worked the whole thing out yet.
Yeah.
But I do like the general idea of Paragon levels to the account, and it's nice that you won't lose everything if you die. And as I was saying, the perverse incentives. I mean, if you would suddenly, so say if your witch doctor died after the system goes live, are you supposed to lose like 80% of your total Paragon points? So your other characters would actually lose Paragon points because somebody else died? That just seems really bizarre.
Yeah, I think that is the one troubling part of the system is the effect on other characters, especially when they've spent those points in terms of how it would work. Um, so I don't know on that, but
And you've got the whole thing that you're dealing with right now. I mean, if you had characters that had individual points, and if this character dies, it loses for your whole account, you would constantly be retiring characters.
mhm,
And then you're running out of character slots. And it's well, I can't play this guy. I've switched off his gear, but he's worth like half my total Paragon bonus. I just don't see how that would be functional. It just seems like it would be technically and in terms of perverse incentives, it would just not work.
right,
I am much more conflicted on the whole bringing dead Paragon characters back and giving them the experience, even though obviously I have a fairly substantial. I have a lot more dead than live Paragon levels. Let's just leave it at that at this point. I hope to change that before the expansion, but it seems cheesy to me. They died. It was in an old system. I didn't. It wasn't like I wasn't told if you just keep this character alive for 6 more months, they'll last forever, kind of thing.
right,
But at the same time, Bashiak's grandma, right? As we always joke about. As much as they're trying to make the game casual friendly, and is it really fair that if you have a Paragon character die in the future, you don't lose anything, whereas you did in the past? I mean, okay, the system changed, obviously, but I could certainly see someone arguing it in the opposite way, right?
right. But you could also look at when they implemented the Paragon system, the people who are farming Inferno forever, they
Yeah.
didn't get a bump up to Paragon 5 or anything like that.
But I mean, you have all these dead witch doctors who died when the game was much more difficult, when the gear was much harder to get, and it was like you had to work harder to gain those levels. And so maybe I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's not going to happen. Like, I would say half the points come in or something like that, half the experience. It's not the same as earning it today, but it was much harder. But you should get some reward for being an old timer. I don't know. I just, I'm I would be surprised if they don't. I never thought they would actually bring in dead ones at all, and they made a number of forum posts and Twitter comments. Obviously, they think it's possible.
Right.
They wouldn't say this if they weren't just considering it, and if they're considering it, obviously it's technically feasible. I mean, they can do it with the system. So I'll be surprised if they don't do it, given how casual friendly everything is in Diablo 3. But I will feel a little bit guilty, and then I will chuckle maniacally and enjoy my 80 extra Paragon points.
Right. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like I'd be curious to see what will happen with the first Crusader I make once, the game goes live and I have all
You'll die to
this.
Gom. That's what'll happen to your first Crusader.
Well, I would imagine not with all the Paragon points you can just throw at it right away, right?
Magda will eat your soul. Magda 2.0, and she's hardcore in the expansion.
I think, like with the Sharagon system, especially in hardcore, it's gonna make getting back to earning Paragon levels a lot easier, especially after a death. Because you have those moments, like you had recently experienced, where you lose a character and then it can get a little frustrating. Like, oh, now I have to get all the way back, and then I have to go at least this way. You can. The only thing you have to focus on is gear, not necessarily the very, very long trek from 1 to 100.
I really do hope there's some sort of individual character Paragon something as well, because especially long term.
Right.
I mean, we mentioned this talking about the Crusader last time. Is that the Crusader seems really interesting and original if you only play softcore where no one ever uses a shield.
Hmm.
Whereas in hardcore, it's like, yeah, I've kind of seen this. It's not that different than my monk or my barbarian. And the same thing with the Sharagon system. If in some point in the future, if you're only softcore, you have the same 5 characters forever, and nothing ever changes. Or maybe perhaps you only have one character forever, as some people seem to do. But if you're in hardcore, you're making new characters all the time. Generally against your will.
Right.
But when you do, they get to Paragon 1, and then they level up really quickly, and it's fun to see them improving. If all you have is an account Paragon and it's at 472 or something, and you need, 400 million experience for the next level, you could make a new level 60 or 70, and they would just never level up. You would be exactly the same with this character for like 3 months until you got enough experience to finally add one more Sharagon level. And that seems like it'd be really boring. That seems like it would be going back to before we even had Paragon systems at all.
Right.
I mean, you'd have all these points, but you'd never be adding any more points because you've got so many points already that it takes forever to get enough experience for another one. And it wouldn't matter if you're playing your Paragon 97 or whatever equivalent, because you don't expect that to level up anyway, unless you're Xanth, in which case it takes like 3 days. But, if you're playing a brand new, like my new monk is, he's Paragon 36 or something now, and it's really fun, because like every 45 minutes or an hour or something, I get another ding. But if these were Sharagon points and I already had 277 of them, maybe it'll get boring. So I'm wondering if the developers are considering that.
So they'll put in a super Paragon system after the new Paragon system.
I just want something like the Paragon system, and you get Paragon points as well. And so every time you level up with a Paragon character, maybe they can even extend it. So it's 1 to 100 now is like 1 to 30 or something, or 1 to 50. And each time you level up, you just get you get the current stat bonus and the magic find and gold find or something like that.
Yeah,
So I mean, at least you see some individual improvement in this individual character, and not just what your Paragon points grant you.
yeah. I think when the announcement first came out about Paragon 2.0, that's what I was expecting. And, it's kind of what we talked about, where your individual character would still be growing on its own separate Paragon system, while at the same time, the account-wide one would also be gaining some experience.
Yeah.
And that I was fine with because that would make sense. Like your hardcore character died, they were Paragon whatever, but your account Paragon is still okay. So you lost that all the work for that character. Your account is in decent shape, but you lost that the progress you had made with it. Whereas now
Yeah.
it's just I could stock up 3 or 4 witch doctors for when one dies, and then just
Have
roll
your
it.
own coven.
Yeah, just roll it over to the next one. Because the only thing that's going to be different is the gear, which maybe I've been conflicted after the post on it. Maybe isn't too bad of a thing when you look back at what Diablo 2 was. Outside of the skills you were using, what was the biggest loss of death really though was the gear. It wasn't necessarily the
It still
time
is.
because you were you were able to get up to the level that you needed to be relatively quickly. But
Good point. Okay, we've gone long.
yeah, we have.
Any last thoughts, Xanth? You're gonna occasionally play your monk and then try not to die with your witch doctor.
Yeah, I think I've kind of been lax as of late, but I'm really looking forward to kind of getting back into my monk. It's been fun just slowly leveling up with my Hellfire ring has a lot of it on it, and then it's got like 11% life and damage on it. So it's just kind of fun to just steamroll through MP10 on normal right now.
Yeah, my monk, I had a Vit Hellfire ring, and those are just spectacular for leveling. It's just a game changer when you have 5,000 hit points in normal. You're just like, hey, I can pretty much do what I want now.
Yeah,
It doesn't, and even in Hell and Nightmare, I had no problem taking. I got turboed a little, and MP10 on Nightmare and Hell. It's like no worries, I got plenty of hit points here. But
yeah,
we're
yeah,
dirty,
nice.
we're filthy elitists, so that's the problem.
Yep, yep.
And thanks for your time, dude.
Yeah, no problem.
And good luck dying and joining me in Hell. And moo,
Moo, moo, moo.
moo, 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 moo.